Huh. Huh. Why does that make so much sense? Why does that make so much sense? The Cultural Research Center at Arizona Christian University. Well, maybe we should do the study outside of a Christian university. That aside, released a study Tuesday attributing the rise in mental health issues such as anxiety, depression, and fear to what researcher George Barna calls worldview deficiencies rather than psychological or chemical imbalances. Didn't Tom Cruise bust the lid open on chemical imbalances like like 10 years ago, 14 years ago or something? Didn't he get blasted for doing that on like Good Morning America or some big morning show or something? I think he implicated the CIA, possibly, perhaps, but maybe I'm making that part up. The findings are based on interviews conducted in January with 2,000 U.S. adults age 18 or older with a sampling error of plus or minus 2 percentage points at the 95% confidence level. The report highlighted mental health struggles among younger generations, noting that 56% of Gen Z and 49% of millennials regularly experience anxiety, fear, or depression. Gen Z refers to the youngest group of American adults, while millennials, Jesus, are defined as those born between blah, 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 blah. Sees a direct correlation between the mental health challenges and the lack of biblical worldview. You could just say a lack of morality, I feel like. Like, this is not gonna touch people, like normal people, because they're gonna say the Bible is garbage, and why would we base anything off of that? But if you just said like morality and positivity, that would account for all of it. A means of experiencing, interpreting, and responding to reality in light of biblical perspectives, moral perspectives, positive perspectives, future-focused perspectives, rather than in the moment, how do I feel perspectives. The CRC, was the CRC, did I just ignore that? Okay, Cultural Research Center evaluates an individual's biblical worldview based on their answers to a series of belief-related questions. Only 1% of Gen Z and 2% of millennials possessed a biblical worldview. That can't be accurate. Well, I guess actually it might be accurate. He commented that it is not uncommon to find a young adult who trusts feelings more than facts. Well, gee golly. Sees no inherent value of life, to life, believes in karma. Those kind of contradict each other, and rejects the existence of the biblical God. That's all fair. But no inherent value to life and karma don't really jive. Karma is kind of predicated on that which you do, you will receive. There has to be some kind of inherent value assigned to that, I would think. Hey, Ghost. I just pulled it up randomly. It's worldview. I'll put it in the chat. It's on the Christian Post. I'll tell you, I don't like it because it came out of a Christian university. It doesn't seem to be corroborated by anything. But I obviously haven't read it all. I'm going to read the rest of it, but Gen Z don't actually know what they believe. Right. I think it's just, it's morality and it's future focus. The problem with like millennials and Gen Z, in my opinion, is like the focus on now. How do I feel right now? And I'm going to behave off of that. What is happening in my life right now? And so I'm going to believe based off of that. And this is like, it's guaranteed you're going to be miserable all of the time if you're not focused on forward. Yeah, I don't know. It looks interesting though. Like, I'll read it later. I just happened upon it. Poor Gen Z. What is the one that's coming back around now though? Is that's Gen Z, right? Who are the ones who are finally like starting to figure things out? I think it's Gen Z. I'm pretty sure. I was just talking to Kat about this, but now I'm not confident that's who I was talking about. Alpha's the youngest, right? So is Alpha the ones who like kind of seem like they have their head on straight now? I don't know. I was reading about one. It was either Gen Z or Alpha. It was Zero, and they were talking about how they're finally starting to like reject all of the psychotic stuff that our generation and around us was doing, like all this weird cultural stuff. They were like, yeah, you guys are insane. That's crazy. We're not going to be a part of that. It was one of them. I don't remember. I think Gen Alpha seems to kind of get it. They're young but more reasonable. I mean, when you grow up in a world that is literally insane, like I'm grateful that my kid is 8, because I believe she's going to grow up as everybody has kind of decided collectively that this was insane. All of this that we were doing and saying was pretty crazy. So I think she'll be a part of like that movement away from it. Gen Z rejects the weird. Yeah, I think it was Zeke that I was reading about, at least. They reject the weird stuff. I don't think it's a majority, though. I could see that. Unfortunately. It is unfortunate. All right, if you're watching this later, we have a Discord. There's the Discord on the screen. There's a link to the Discord in the pinned chat thing, pinned comment on the live chat. It's also in the description of the video. You're watching this right now on this YouTube channel. There is also this one, at Tattoo Theist. You find it somewhere or type it in. It'll pop up. One of the live streams that we do, we're going to be starting 3 again. We do 2 of them on the Bible study page. Straight Bible study, all day, all the time. All that's ever going to be on here. And then more off-the-cuff topics and conversations. We'll go back on this page, which was my original one. But Discord is the place to be. So join that. It's free. It'll always be free. And there have been some interesting things happening in there. Some interesting people have joined. And one that I know is joining soon that I'm excited about. Some people, it's a weird like thing that's happening right now. Is people who've been around for many years are like finally like pulling the trigger on downloading the app. I think the older folks are getting more comfortable with the idea of Discord. At least that's my interpretation of it. All right, we're in what? 27, 28, right? Right. Yeah. 27, 28. And Halo. And these are good ones because we get some good betrayal. There's some brotherly conflict. There's some lying to Isaac. It's a bunch of decent stuff up in here this evening. So I'm kind of excited for it. Isaac blesses Jacob, but he doesn't really mean to. Gen Z in the house. Is that you? Are you Gen Z, Mikkel? NASA, don't blame them. I'm 30 and it took my joining this group to even attempt using Discord. Well, I'm not blaming them. I had never used Discord before. A group of people convinced me to move this to Discord. It was a massive Instagram like chat that we were doing this in before. And it just became untenable. And I pushed back on Discord for several months until it looked like it was perfect, and it is. It's the greatest thing for this type of thing. Isaac blesses Jacob, kind of. Kind of, not really, but kind of. Let me make this bigger for my old man eyes. When Isaac was old and his eyes were dim, so that he could not see, important part, he cannot see, he called Esau, his older son, and said to him, "My son." And he answered, "Here I am." He said, "Behold, I am old. I do not know the day of my death." I want to read this because I thought this was an interesting perspective. Isaac lives for quite a while after this section. We know that as we read on. He is 100 years old when Esau marries the Hittite woman. We know that from 26. The text does not specify how much time has passed since that incident. So that's just something to mentally log. But Jacob lives in Haran for 20 years. We know that from chapter 31, which we haven't read yet. Since Isaac lives until after Jacob returns, his death occurs 20 to 80 years later. And we know that from chapter 35. So we don't know exactly, but because of greater context, we can kind of get this range of 20 to 80 years beyond the year 100 to have an idea. Now then, take your weapons, your quiver and your bow, and go out to the field and hunt game for me, and prepare for me a delicious meal, for me delicious food, such as I love, and bring it to me so that I may eat, that my soul may bless you before I go. And that is important because of the whole birthright thing that happened last week, last chapter. The birthright is a property and money thing. Generation to generation, property and money, specifically. That's already shifted, right? Because it's been given to Jacob by Esau. And these are things that you can't take back. Once it's done, it's done. It's like when we talk about making the deal with somebody. Like I've been having a hard time with words lately. I don't know if I'm like going senile or what it is. The Jesus Christ, somebody help me. The word making a deal. We've talked about it so much. My brain is just frying in real time. What is the biblical word? An oath. Good God. When you make an oath in biblical days, it's keep or die. You keep the oath or you die. These were the same types of things. Is the birthright being passed? He couldn't pass it to Jacob and then be like, no, actually, I want it back. Once it happens, it's done. It's irrevocable. It's over. The blessing, though, may bless you before I die. Isaac wants to bless him before he dies because he knows that he's dying. This is not the same thing, but it is a similar thing. I think it's something in the air. I can't talk for Ish anymore. Dude, it's been driving me insane. I feel like I'm progressively getting dumber, but in real time, and I can like sense it, and that's starting to make me alarmed. The blessing is a focus on the future, but it also does have to do with money and general prosperity. But it is different in context normally, and this will involve God. The blessing will involve God, whereas the birthright doesn't necessarily involve God. And that's kind of like one of the key differences. So the birthright passing has already happened to Jacob from Esau. Now we're talking about a blessing from Isaac down below. Now, on the side, being shady, Rebekah was listening when Isaac spoke to his son Esau. So when Esau went to the field to hunt for game and bring it, Rebekah said to her son Jacob, because remember, we had this family feud too. Isaac loves Esau. Rebekah loves Jacob. And the author set us up that last chapter to make that very aware, very, very predominant, because it was going to matter, and this is when it starts to matter. So Rebekah is making side deals with Jacob. Rebekah went to Jacob and said, I heard your father speak to your brother Esau. Bring me game and prepare for me a delicious meal, that I may eat it and bless you before the Lord before I die. Now, therefore, my son, obey my voice as I command you. This is Rebekah. Obey my voice as I command you. Go to the flock and bring me 2 good young goats, so that I may prepare from them delicious food for your father, such as he loves. So she is stepping in to something that she's got no business in. She shouldn't have any business in. And she says, obey my voice, obey my words, listen to my voice, depending on your translation. As I command you. She's taking dominance in the situation. Rebekah is becoming the instigator of what is going to be a massive dramatic scene. She is going to Jacob privately on the side, secretly, and telling Jacob he needs to follow her directions because she has a plan. And you shall bring it to your father to eat, so that he may bless you before he dies. But Jacob said to Rebekah his mother, behold, my brother Esau is a hairy man, and I am a smooth man. That's exactly what it sounds like. Perhaps my father will feel me, and I shall seem to be mocking him, and bring a curse upon myself and not a blessing. So in case it isn't clear, because in my opinion, it's not super clear. What is happening is they are trying to trick Isaac. They're trying to trick Isaac. I didn't want to say it. I'm glad you did. They want to trick Isaac into giving the blessing to the wrong brother. Because the birthright passing already happened. Now they want the blessing to be passed. But the blessing won't be passed if Isaac knows it's the wrong son. That makes perfect sense. It should. So Jacob is concerned that he's going to get caught. Because Jacob's like, Mom, Esau is a manly man. He's very hairy. What if Isaac touches me, being the smooth, what Ghost said in the chat, then he'll know. And not only will I not get the blessing, but it will bring a curse upon me. So Jacob is concerned about it. His mother said to him, let your curse be on me, my son. Only obey my voice and go bring them to me. So she's willing to shoulder the curse if need be, because she really wants this to go down. Oh no, Ghost. Actually, let me read this too, because this was good perspective also. In the context of the curse, bring a curse upon myself and not a blessing. In the ancient Near East, this is from Logos. Curses were considered powerful if they had divine support divine support, a real threat in this instance since God chose Isaac as his covenant recipient and the one who would pass on the blessing of the covenant to his heir. We know that from 26. This makes Rebekah's promise that she would take any curse upon herself a serious matter. She would be taking on the opposite of the covenant promise, which is a lack of divine support. So it's not a neutral thing. It's like a very negative thing. What is that, a hammer? Uncultured. That's all that I am. So mom's going to take on the curse. Mom's like, I got it. Don't worry about it, baby boy. Don't worry about it, my smooth, sweet boy. So he went and took them and brought them to his mother, and his mother prepared delicious food, such as his father loved. Then Rebekah took the best garments of Esau, her older son, which were with her in the house, and put them on Jacob, her younger son. So she's now dressing him up like his brother so that he can go in and try to trick his father. The garments are thought to be probably are kind of formal wear, meant for like ceremonies and things like that. 16. And the skins of the young goats she put on his hands and on the smooth part of his neck. I'm going to read that again because it's weird. The skins of the young goats she put on his hands and on the smooth part of his neck. She is now trying to disguise his sweet, smooth skin so that he does not get caught. This is an elaborate ploy. And she put the delicious food and the bread, which she had prepared, into the hand of her son, Jacob. So now Jacob, masquerading as Esau, is going to daddy dearest Isaac and trying to steal the blessing out from under his nose. My first question, just like theologically, is would God allow that? Without reading forward, obviously, because some of this gets answered. But the first like obvious theological question is, a blessing requires Yahweh. It requires God's involvement. Otherwise, it's not a blessing. It's more of a contract or an oath. If the blessing requires God, and God obviously is aware the man with sheep hair on his hands and smooth neck is not the intended recipient of the blessing, God would probably be like, nah, it ain't you, bro. No. This is just how my brain works when I read. Go said, I feel like there is some deeper meaning here. I completely agree. Yeah, because this again, it just so much out of Genesis, it just seems silly almost. Like it's very like theatrical, in my opinion. That it seems to be very obviously not meant to depict what it's depicting, but something else, something greater, something deeper. I totally agree. So she does weird stuff, puts the goat skin on his hands, so that he doesn't get caught not being hairy because he's very smooth and sweet. 18. So he went into his father and said, my father. And he said, here I am. Who are you, my son? This is all really important. Isaac. This thing jumps me around all the time, bro. Okay, so he went to his father and said, my father, and his father said, here I am. And then he responded, who are you, my son? That is telling. Jacob, who is masquerading as Esau, hasn't really said anything yet. He hasn't really done anything yet. And we know that Isaac can't see anything. And Isaac is already suspicious. So the insinuation possibly is that the voice was that different, or Isaac was that kind of aware of what was going on, possibly. Had an inference, perhaps, that he knew something was amiss. Okay, I'll come back to that. 19. Jacob said to his father, I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Now sit up and eat of my game, that your soul may bless me. But Isaac said to his son, how is it that you have found it so quickly, my son? He answered, because the Lord your God, underline that right there, because the Lord your God, because Yahweh, that's how it actually reads, your God, granted me success. Yahweh your God. Why this is kind of important than normal is like we've talked about this from the beginning of Genesis, is that the ESV specifically, which is what we read on these streams, never uses the word Yahweh. I don't think at all ever, but it might a couple of places, but I don't think it does ever. So anytime it says the Lord, the actual writing was Yahweh, which is relevant in and of itself. However, it's extremely relevant here because even in some of the older texts, Yahweh wasn't what was always used. There was kind of a mix. So what happens then is when we have like the ESV and all you see is the Lord, you miss out on situations like this right here. Because what happens right here, because the Lord your God, Jacob specifically uses God's covenant name, which is significant and it matters. And if you're reading an old translation where Yahweh isn't always used, but it's used when it matters and when there's relevance, at least a bit more than otherwise, you get to see a contrast. Unfortunately, here you don't know that. It just all blends together. But here in the original manuscript, he uses Yahweh. He uses the covenant name for God, which is relevant. And he refers to Yahweh as Isaac's God. Not his God, not my God. Jacob doesn't say my God. It's your God. There's an evasion happening. And possibly more if you look into it a little bit. 21. Then Isaac said to Jacob, please come near that I may feel you, my son, to know whether you are really my son Esau or not. So Jacob went near to Isaac, his father, who felt him and said, the voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau, because mommy put hairy goat fur on his hands, just in case anybody forgot. And he did not recognize him, because his hands were hairy like his brother Esau's hands. So he blessed him. So hold up. Logical reading here. Isaac understands at least some percentage. The voice is always a dead giveaway. Exactly, which is why this is odd. Isaac completely recognizes that Jacob's voice is not Esau's, which like the voice is the thing that you can't really fake unless you're one of those few people who are very good at it. Your voice is your voice, and you can try to sound like somebody else, but it's very difficult. Isaac ignores that because Jacob lets him feel his furry goat hand and is like, must be Esau. The voice is not at all right. Sounds just like, and not only is it not right, but it happens to sound like your brother, which is interesting. Not unless you're saying Shane Gillis, right? Not only is the voice not right, but you sound just like Jacob. That should immediately be like, okay, we're done. This is BS. But because you have furry hands, even though you sound like Jacob and not like Esau, you must be Esau. Here's the blessing. So he does bless him. It is the blessing with the meal. And with that comes the promise in and of itself that the blessing will be performed and produced and come to its ultimate existential end there. That is the ending. The blessing has now happened. So we've lost the birthright. We've lost the blessing, which involves Yahweh, which again is like a theological question that really bothers me. But both of those things are done. He said, are you really my son Esau? What the hell is wrong with Isaac? Super, what do the kids say? Super sus already, Gen Z, about this not being Esau. Gives the blessing anyways. And then immediately is like, are you really Esau? I'll give you the blessing. Something that can't just be replicated or replaced. But are you really the right person? I don't quite know. Jacob responded, I am. In Hebrew, it's one word. It's anai, I believe is how it's said. Jacob is still afraid, though, that this could all come unraveled. He still is fearful, as he should be, that he's going to get caught. So although he's already received the blessing, it doesn't mean like he's clear. This could still go wrong. He could still get caught, and it could cause a problem. So he's nervous. Go said, LSC. Go so when was Isaac testing their scheme, fully knowing who he blessed? Right, which is one of the questions. Because it's just one of these, it's so silly. It's so silly. And it just seems so much like it just seems so much like they're trying to teach you a lesson. And not the characters, us. It seems so apparently a lesson of principle and of consequence, perhaps. that I tend to agree. I don't know if I'd fully say that, but it's definitely a thought for sure. Similar to God asking Adam if he ate of the tree, right? They're like these rhetorical questions because the principle is what matters, or is at least a primary matter in what is trying to be expressed by the author. But he lies. Who lies? Several people have lied so far. 25. Then he said, "Bring it near to me, that I may eat of my son's game and bless you." So he brought it near to him, and he ate, and he brought him wine, and he drank. Then his father Isaac said to him, "Come near and kiss me, my son." So Isaac is hopefully catching up. Hey, there's Patricia. Is hopefully catching up. So he came near and kissed him, and Isaac smelled the smell of his garments and blessed him and said, now remembering, what did old delightful mommy dearest Rebekah do to help fake this? Jacob lied, pretending to be his brother. Right. Ghost is saying, unless you're talking about something else, Ghost was talking about, is Isaac testing them, like testing the scheme, and knew the whole time who he was blessing and just playing along. It's like a valid question. I think in the story itself, I don't believe that's what's happening, but I think it could be like a side principle of it. But the reason I don't necessarily think so is because it just keeps going on like this. And there's another confirmation right here that seems as if Isaac does not understand what's going on, because when Isaac smells him, "Come near to me, kiss me," so he kisses him, and then he smells him, and he smells the garments of who? Jacob is dressed in Esau's garments because mommy went and took Esau's garments so that Jacob would smell like him. So it seems like further confirmation that they did trick him. Possibly, at least so far. "See, the smell of my son is the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed," that Yahweh has blessed. "May God give you of the dew of heaven." And I just got bounced. Hold on. "May God give you the dew of heaven and of the fatness of the earth and plenty of grain and wine." The is metaphor, obviously. Material abundance, which is part of the initial promise way back when in Genesis, that just kind of keeps tumbling out into the next generation. In return, they'll have continued sustenance, large numbers, bunch of kids, livestock, which we saw with all of the previous main characters. It's just these same things, these promises from God, just tumbling from one person to the next. Pastora. Continuing on. All too in a region where rainfall will be plentiful. Drought has been a problem in the past. A part of this now is that drought will no longer be a problem, at least within the context. "Plenty of grain and wine. Let people serve you and nations bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers. And may your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be everyone who blesses you. Be Lord over your brothers." The wording is depicting kind of the very broad lens of the dominance that is going to be had, especially with the continued, "and may your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be anyone who curses you, and blessed be anyone who blesses you." Isaac was passing on everything, not only the inheritance, the financial worldly aspect of it, but with the blessing. So there's the divine aspect of it, which is why the previous section is relevant and matters. He had a covenant with Yahweh. That covenant, in a sense, is being stolen through a lie, at least at this point. Context that matters, and it'll matter kind of as we continue on. Okay. 30. As soon as Isaac had finished blessing Jacob, so now it's complete, it's done. When Jacob had scarcely gone out from the presence of Isaac, his father, Esau, his brother, came in from his hunting. He also prepared delicious food and brought it to his father. And he said to his father, "Let my father arise and eat of his son's game, that you may bless me." His father Isaac said to him, "Who are you? Who are you?" One thing to think about is the voice was a problem before, because it wasn't actually Esau, it was Isaac. I'm sorry, it wasn't Isaac. It was Jacob. The voice should be right now. And there should be a stark contrast, because Jacob was just talking and Isaac was already kind of hella sussed out, bro. And now you have actual Esau. speaking. So now Isaac should be like, oh, bummer. I was right about being wrong. Wrong brother that I just gave the blessing to. My son could possibly also be telling you that he's having a hard time understanding that he was just deceived. Would be the other perspective, right? Because he either in this moment, it's an Osh moment. I know what just happened. Or it's genuine. Who are you? Because now he's so confused about the voices and about what is going on. Two different perspectives. I pick answer A, because I think it's more likely. He answered, I am your son, your firstborn, Esau. Then Isaac trembled very violently and said, who was it then that hunted game and brought it to me? And I ate it all before you came, and I have blessed him. Yes, and he shall be blessed. Confirming like the blessing is done and the blessing was good. As soon as Esau heard the words of his father, he cried out with an exceedingly great and bitter cry and said to his father, bless me, even me also, oh my father. Esau is kind of losing it because birthright gone, now blessing gone. He's having everything kind of ripped out from under him. It's just pretty rough. Like it's one of those things. If you put yourself in the perspective of the actual people here, literal or not aside, like be a part of the story. If this were all literal, perfect history accounting, if you experience that, you basically like have nothing to live for. You are in a position to have and to hold every like great significance in the world, extreme significance in like a worldly perspective and a divine perspective. And you just have both of those things ripped out from under you. It would be completely earth-shattering. Bless me, even me also, oh my father. Esau is not asking that the blessing he gave to Jacob, thinking it was Esau, be removed. He's asking for an additional blessing. Reason being, what I kind of mentioned before, is that these types of things, at least from what we can tell, they were not things you could take back. It was an oath. It was for life. It was done. Once done, always done. It's irrevocable. So Esau's not asking, take it back, remove the blessing from Jacob because it wasn't meant for him. Hey, Graves. He's saying, please also bless, like, I need something. He wants to also receive a blessing. And you can't blame the dude. What a brutal turn of events, especially with mommy throwing you under the bus. 35, but he said, your brother came deceitfully and has taken away your blessing. Esau said, is he not rightly named Jacob? For he has cheated me these 2 times, which is what I was just referencing. I want to read this. This is from Logos too. It's very well said. Esau uses the Hebrew word, okay, I'm going to butcher this, but I believe it's akab here, which is a wordplay on Jacob's name in Hebrew, which is Yaakov. Yaakov means to protect and was given to Jacob as a name because of wordplay with a different word from 25, which said, afterward, his brother came out of his hand holding Esau's heel. If you remember, I remember that part. Holding his heel, so his name was called Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old, blah, blah, blah. So wordplay on wordplay on wordplay. Esau suggests that Jacob's name actually has to do with him being a person who supplants or cheats other people. Jacob is a trickster. I don't know how to answer Ruth's question. What was Ruth's question? Ruth said, seems like deception or sin was used by God to ensure the purity of Jesus' lineage. Why do you say that? Like beyond the obvious, I guess. I want to think about that. I'll be rolling that in the back of my head while we continue reading. And then I'd be down to revisiting that at the end. I get why you're saying it from like an obvious perspective, but I'd be curious to kind of have you flesh it out a bit. Great point. I'm not gonna lie. It's a good point. That's one of the, we got to figure out a way to make that make sense. I think I know at least what I would say. But I'd like to see kind of how you flesh that out beyond the obvious. That's a great point, though. Truly, genuinely, very good point. All right, cheated me 2 times. I definitely want to come back to that, so don't let me get off tonight before we talk about that again. He took away my birthright. That was last week. And behold, now he has taken away my blessing. Then he said, have you not reserved a blessing for me? Isaac answered and said to Esau, behold, I have made him Lord over you. I have made him Lord over you, which was said in kind of in the stanza, the poetry section above. I have made him Lord over you. And all his brothers I have given to him for servants, which was the next line down on that poem. I've given it to him for servants, and with grain and wine I have sustained him. And then, what then can I do for you, my son? I gave him everything, thinking he was you. What else can I offer you? Esau said to his father, have you but one blessing, my father? Can you only bless one time? Bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. Then Isaac, his father, answered and said to him, this is going to be eerily similar, but obviously different. Behold, away from the fatness of the earth shall your dwelling be, and away from the dew of heaven on high. This is antithetical to what the previous blessing to Jacob masquerading as Esau was. It's the opposite. By your sword you shall live, meaning you will be a pillager, and you shall serve your brother. But when you grow restless, you shall break his yoke from your neck, which is kind of the significant part at the end. All of this is just the opposite of the initial. Everything good that was said to Jacob masquerading as Esau, well, now the opposite side, the negative side of it, is being said to Esau. Esau's descendants, the Edomites, they became essentially an army under David later in Samuel, which makes sense due to some of this that is said here. You shall serve your brother. So down the line, boom, right there. By your sword you shall live. A part of the army. All of this ends up being corroborated later in scripture. You shall break his yoke from your neck. In the 9th century BC, he said this from Logos too. Esau's descendants, Edom, eventually revolted against Jacob's descendants, represented by the southern nation of Judah. And they're citing 2 Kings 8 for that. The southern kingdom of Judah had several conflicts with Edom thereafter. Like other times. Okay. So Israel was born because of a Trojan horse style trick. Right. I'm interested to hear it fleshed out. I think I know where I sit with it. And I don't necessarily think you're wrong. Say that. I don't necessarily think you're wrong. 41? 41. Yeah, we're right at the end. Now Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing with which his father had blessed him. And Esau said to himself, the day of mourning for my father are approaching. Then I will kill my brother Jacob. Things are getting hot. But the words of Esau, her older son, were told to Rebekah. So she sent and called Jacob, her younger son, and said to him, behold, your brother Esau comforts himself about you by planning to kill you. Now, therefore, my son, obey my voice. That sounds familiar, right? Mommy is basically controlling Jacob. Obey my voice. Arise, flee to Laban, my brother in Haran, and stay with him a while until your brother's fury turns away, until your brother's anger turns away from you, and he forgets what you have done to him. Then I will send and bring you from there. Why should I bereft of you both in one day? Then Rachel said to Isaac, I loathe my life because of the Hittite woman. I love this. It's dramatic. Like it's not meant to be exactly true. She's not telling the exact truth. She knew Esau wants to kill Jacob. She knew that Isaac was unaware of that situation. If Rebekah did not want to rope Isaac into this, using this information, then she didn't have to. She wanted to, so she needed an excuse, and so she used this as an excuse. This was the excuse. I loathe my life because of the Hittite woman. It's kind of comical. It's a bit dramatic. It's funny. If Jacob marries one of the Hittite women like these, one of the women of the land, what good will my life be to me? This is her excuse, the great excuse. An ancient Balfour Declaration. Ruth said, in church, we are taught, Jesus, dude. We are taught we go to hell for our sins. Well, at least I was. Looking at all these stories, Jacob's sin of deception was what brought about Israel. All right, well, we just finished 27, so I guess we can take a brief intermission. Yeah, I agree. But it's really not that weird if you think about it. So I guess like 2 points. 1 point from what you just said. We go to hell for our sins. The Bible is full of lying. That's just the truth. From cover to cover, there is just constant lying. For good reasons, for bad reasons, to prove a point, to teach a principle, to expand on a message, to draw an illustration, and then a lot of the time to manipulate a situation. It's just the truth. We don't have to like it, but it's the truth. God used people to do things, and the people were not always honest. And the Bible depicts these things as though those directives came from God. In the Old Testament, and that's the important part. Like, that's the important distinction. And then the other important distinction is how much of the Old Testament do you think is actually literal and are not stories? Because if they're stories, it makes a bit more sense, and you can pull away from the theological moral perspective a bit. If this is all literal history, and God literally used people to manipulate situations and had them lie, which is sinning, so had them do the thing that causes death, that's a bit harder theologically to make sense out of. That's more of a struggle, big picture wise. But the complexity of it all is that, like, the Bible says what it says. So then you have to kind of rally the exegesis, the interpretation, the genre of the text. Is it meant to teach us something, or is it meant to give us information about the past? And then what is the actual theological perspective or outlook? And then you have to put all those puzzle pieces together in a way that kind of makes sense and can be cohesive throughout the whole thing. It's a highly complicated deal, which is why it's so hard. It's why it's so hard, because what you're saying is it's just the truth. Like, as the Bible reads, what Ruth caught on to there is just the truth. That is how everything started. And you could argue, like, it would have started a different way. Like, God just took advantage of this situation that was going to happen anyways, and then built his people from there. Like, you could say that. Or you could say God did it. But if you say, like, God just took advantage of the situation and used it for his, ultimate plan, or whatever you want to call it, you have to then do that again, because this happens again, and then it happens again, and then it happens some more. In the Old Testament is atrociously difficult to cohesively make sense of theology and ethics and morals. It's difficult because of God's involvement in a lot of things. But that's why you have to say, that's why I choose to take a step back and be like, okay, this doesn't seem to necessarily be literally what happened. This seems to be kind of an artist's rendition, a more dramatic, more fun, more captivate the audience at the time to get them to understand the principle of what happened, the gist, like the beginning of Genesis. I don't I don't necessarily believe a slithery snake came and talked to two people. I don't necessarily believe the two people existed. They might have, very open to it, but I don't necessarily believe that. But isn't it a great story to teach people original sin? It's perfect. There were two people. They were never going to die. There was just this one fruit tree. They were told not to eat it. They could do anything else they wanted. The people were so selfish. Sin was so inherent in their nature. They were tricked so quickly. Like it's if God didn't mean for it to happen, it's a joke. Like God is dumb if he didn't mean for that to happen. It was set up so that they would fail. These are similar situations. In my opinion, this is all totally my opinion, the way that I read the Bible. It doesn't make any sense logically at all. And I don't think God is an illogical being. I think God is on such a different level that this is like almost irrelevant. But I think these stories, the people of the time would have understood and been like, oh, I get what you were trying to tell me. That makes sense to me. It just makes no damn sense to us whatsoever. Because none of it is relatable to any of us anymore. And that's what makes it difficult. Rant over. And I'll start 28. In 1 second. Elsie's brain exploded. Hopefully it just exploded and not a long time ago, because I just ranted for a while. You can't trick God. The blessing belongs to Jacob, so Jacob gets it regardless. Right, but then you have to justify, if the story be literal, why did God allow all of the lying and deception? Why was deception that which caused God to get what he wanted? That's if I'm understanding correctly, that's what I believe Ruth is trying to get at. It means God won by means of deception, which is sin, which is death. Sure, God can do whatever he wants, but he involved people to sin, which means to die. Which also, like, still, God can do whatever he wants. If he wants to kill people, he does it all the time. He did it all the time, right? Even in the New Testament, drop people dead. Does God later use the deception as a lesson in a later passage? Off the top of my head, I want to say once more in Genesis, but certainly elsewhere in the Old Testament, beyond a shadow of a doubt. Yes. But I believe again in Genesis. I believe, but I'm not super confident. I'm extremely, extremely confident throughout the rest of the Old Testament. It is absolutely used more than this one time. Deception is used. Yeah, for sure. So it's something that is to be wrestled with. I don't have a hard time with this one, personally. I don't struggle. I struggle with a lot in the Bible. These are not the types of things I struggle with anymore. For the most part. Because I've kind of arranged in my head, like, these are the possibilities of outcome. And I'm okay with any of them. I don't really care. They all make sense to varying degrees. None of them make sense fully, which is just kind of like the state of reading the Bible. It's just kind of what everybody needs to be okay with when reading the Bible. But I get why it's troubling, for sure. I get it. But of all the things that, like, God was in some ways involved in or had a part in, like, this is not one that really troubles me all that much, personally. There are others, for sure, that I've had a bit of a harder time with. Okay, Jacob sent to Laban. Then Isaac called Jacob and blessed him and directed him, "You must not take a wife from the Canaanite women." If you remember, this should be like Groundhog Day, because we did this already a handful of chapters ago. Like Abraham, Isaac now is saying to Jacob to marry within the family. Rodriguez would be very upset if she were here, but this is the reality, the sad reality. Same thing happened with Abraham, same thing is happening now. Arise, go to Padan Aram, to the house of Bethuel. Isaac is not in the loop of the actual reason, if you remember, for why Jacob is leaving. I think there might be a wild animal in this room. Isaac is not a part of what's going on, right? This was Rebekah's excuse to Isaac for why Jacob needs to bounce. Isaac is not clear on the actual reason for why Jacob needs to bounce, which is because Jacob is in danger of being murdered by old big bro for stealing his blessing and his birthright. Go to Padan Aram, to the house of Bethuel, your mother's father, and take as your wife from there one of the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. God Almighty bless you and make you fruitful and multiply, that you may become a company of peoples, large. May he give the blessing of Abraham to you and to your offspring with you, that you may take possession of the land and of your sojournings that God gave to Abraham. Thus Isaac sent Jacob away, and he went to Padan Aram, to Laban, the son of Bethuel, and Aramean, the brother of Rebekah, Jacob's and Esau's mother. The brother of Rebekah. Esau marries an Ishmaelite. Now Esau saw that Isaac had blessed Jacob, and sent him away to Padan Aram to take a wife from there, and that as he blessed him, he directed him, quote, you must not take a wife from the Canaanite women, end quote, and that Jacob had obeyed his father and his mother and gone to Padan Aram. So when Esau saw that the Canaanite women did not please Isaac, his father, Esau went to Ishmael and took as his wife, besides the wife he had, keynote, Mahalath, the daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son, the sister of Nebaioth. There's a lot of interrelation up in here. The wife of Esau, I'm reading from Logos, on Mahalath. The wife of Esau is apparently called Basemath in the list of Esau's wives in chapter 36 later. Both here and in 36, the wife is identified as the daughter of Ishmael and the sister of Nebaioth. Both names may refer to the same woman, but the various passages naming Esau's wife are not identical. In chapter 26, for example, Basemath is called the daughter of Elon the Hittite, but in 36, Adah is identified as the daughter of Elon the Hittite. So there's a bit of confusion about the actual connections among the people, but they did their best to try to explain it and make it make sense. Jacob's dream. This is also significant, and I believe there's more deeper meaning to this than what meets the eye. Jacob left Beersheba and went toward Haran. And he came to a certain place and stayed there that night, because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones of the place, he put it under his head and lay down in that place to sleep, which is kind of a weird thing to do, but makes sense in a minute. And he dreamed, and behold, there was a ladder. Let me break this down as we go. There was a ladder. Stairway is what a lot of translations will say. This is the only place this shows up. The Hebrew verb salal, meaning literally to heap up. So in English, we get ladder, stairway, stair step. I believe those are like the majority of what is used. But derived from that Hebrew verb salal, meaning to heap up. Or the Akkadian word similitude, no idea how to say it, which is used for a stairway of steps, which is probably where we actually get the English translation from, because translating from Hebrew doesn't quite make sense. To heap up being translated to ladders or stairways doesn't quite make sense. But if you go with the Akkadian, it makes a bit more sense, kind of. The description that its top reached to heaven echoes the description of the Tower of Babel, which is what comes next. So there was a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. And behold, the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. That gives you the image of like divine beings using the ladder or using the stairway They're making their entrance into a different realm and then leaving that realm. There's also this insinuation that they come here. They're going away and then they're coming back here. Thought to be doing God's work when here. Now, so is there any discourse out there about why incest was forbidden back then? Wasn't forbidden back then. I was going to say, what? It's illegal now because it's so dangerous. Were they unaware of the risks? Seems odd to overlook with so many other rules. So it kind of depends on when you're talking about, in my opinion. It depends on when you're talking about. Babel means gateway to heaven in Akkadian. Got to be right. I think it's a direct connection, for sure. It's too similar. And it even gets deeper than that too, with the ziggurat. Anyways, Nat, look at when that actually happened, because you're talking like Mosaic law, Deuteronomy area, is when, for the most part, that was kind of like, okay, don't do that anymore. The most common excuse you'll get is, well, there weren't enough people. Which is kind of a bad excuse, because even here in Genesis, like the very beginning, we have reference to tons of people. Like tons of people from different cultures. The problem was bloodline was a different thing back then. Bloodline was literal in a lot of cultures and like sects of society. Bloodline was related. So if you wanted to keep your bloodline, you had to keep it in the family. So blame it on ignorance, blame it on just the way culture worked, and that bloodline literally was something that was highly valued, and there was status attached to it and wealth attached to it. I mean, there's a lot of different reasons. But even throughout the Bible, it was something they for the most part, they stopped doing. It doesn't really explain why. It just explains kind of that they did, kind of. Fair enough, makes sense. I'm glad it makes sense to you, because it doesn't really make sense to me. I get most of it, but it's like kind of. I kind of understand what the Bible says, but it's a very passive thing in a way. I wish there was a better explanation, I guess is what I'm saying, because I've never been satisfied with the examples I get. All right, so what Ghost said there, Babel means gateway to heaven in Akkadian. Got to be a connection. I don't know if you remember, when we were talking about Babel, the ziggurat, which is this, it's the large pyramid that would have like a shrine or a temple. They were massive. They were beautiful. They were these ancient Mesopotamian, just gorgeous structures that had direct connection to Babel. Just remember that, I guess, because we'll come back to that later. And now I've lost my place. Okay, here we go. The angels of God were ascending and descending on it. There's just so much connection to, real quick, there's so much connection here, right here, with the way this is said as well, with some of the references of Babel. And then the rest I'll come back to. But just, I totally agree with Ghost. There's direct connection here to what happened over there and what it meant over there. The angelic presence, the way things were structured, both physically and otherwise, it's very closely related. 13, and behold, the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham, your father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie, I will give to you and to your offspring. Real quick. The Lord stood above it. There are 3 different ways to translate this. So let's do all of them. The first would be above it, which is what we have in the ESV. Another would be beside him. And the third would be beside it. If it's translated as beside him or beside it, then Yahweh is on the ground standing next to Jacob as he gazed at the cosmic stairway. If translated above it, which is what the ESV has, then Yahweh is visible at the top of the stairway. Attach significance however you want. But the translation there would change the physical standing of the situation and the circumstance. You decide whether it's significant or not. We'll come back to that too. Then he said, the land on which you lie, I will give to you and to your offspring. It's the same thing with Abraham. It's just over and over and over with these different characters as we progress. It's the same promise of land. It's the same covenant promise in general. It just keeps being repeated. Your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth, repeated. And you shall spread abroad the west and to the east and to the north and to the south, which means everywhere, which is repeated. And in you and your offspring shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Repeated. It's the same promise, the same covenant over and over. Behold, I am with you and will keep you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. For I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. Then Jacob awoke from his sleep, because remember, this was all a dream, and said, surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. That is significant for a very interesting reason, and I want to read this. Unlike Abraham and Isaac's divine encounter with the land of promise, it was a geographical location for both of them, the same one, in fact. Jacob's encounter here was at a different location, not yet associated with any divine appearances. That is new and different. Abraham and Isaac's were identical. Same place, same type of encounter. Jacob's is totally different. Different type of encounter, different location of encounter. The cosmic geography has now changed, or at least seems to be. And his astonishment at it, right, like his surprise, surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. Jacob was aware that that was significant. He was aware that the new geography and the new type of experience there, it was significant. To what degree, he doesn't seem to fully grasp, but he understands that it is. 17, he was afraid and said, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven, the house of God. The Hebrew phrase used, Beth Elohim, is typically used of a temple. Temples were both divine abodes and places where divine activity, as it pertained to humanity, could be witnessed or experienced. Interesting. So that comes from Logos. And then Logos also has this for the gate of heaven, which was that next part, the gate of heaven. The house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. The stairway led to God's abode, the heavens, where divine administration of the affairs of heaven and earth were conducted. I don't know if I personally like that very much, but I get where they're coming from. So early in the morning, Jacob took the stone that he had to put under his head, because remember, that was kind of a weird thing to do. They did it, but he did it, and set it up for a pillar and poured oil on top of it. This is bizarre behavior. If you think hard for a minute, because it's new behavior, if you're just getting into the Bible and you don't have other context from other times you've read other parts of the Old Testament and other parts of the New Testament, fresh eyes, this is weird behavior for this book. It's odd for these people. It's the sacred standing stone. The stone pillar. Set it up for a pillar and poured oil on top of it. The Old Testament later in Exodus, in Deuteronomy, in Joshua, is where we come to understand this more. Most of the time, it's paganism. These stone pillars are put up to worship false gods. Like, that's what they're known for. These would be gods that are antithetical to Yahweh. And what would happen is that they'd get torn down. They'd be destroyed. Jacob puts one up here in honor of Yahweh, as a respect to Yahweh. It's odd. It's really odd. The only other times that come to mind for me, at least immediately without really looking or thinking about it, where God's people or a God person puts up some kind of what you might call an idol, it never ended well. I don't recall a single time of it ending well. I recall numerous times of it not ending well. But here, the context or lack of context maybe, it kind of leads you to believe this was positive. He called the name of that place Bethel, but the name of the city was Luz at the first. Then Jacob made a vow, saying, if God will be with me and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat and clothes to wear, so that I come again to my father's house in peace, then the Lord shall be my God. Because before, it was Yahshua, your God. Isaac, your God. Not mine. Yours. Now he's addressing personally. The Lord shall be my God. Yahweh shall be my God. And this stone, which I have set up for a pillar, shall be God's house. And of all that you give me, I will give a full tenth to you, which is one of the abused verses about the tithe that I don't even want to talk about. It's bizarre. Bizarre. Really weird. Greater context of the Old Testament. Odd. I am super hella sus, Gen Z, that we're missing something here. Because it just makes no sense. It makes no sense. It's very odd. Greater context of the Bible, what Jacob did was a bad thing. Context here immediately is that what Jacob did was a good thing. It's very hard to make it make sense for me. And maybe I'm missing something, so I'm very open to hearing it. This has always bothered me. Gotcha, baby. This has always bothered me. There is almost nowhere else in the Bible where this pillar is a positive thing. And like I said, there are numerous parts of the Bible where the pillar is a downright negative thing, meant to represent something negative. I'm glad it's not just me. It bothers the hell out of me. It's like one of many, but one of a shorter list of many that just like it enrages me. Because it doesn't add up. It doesn't add up with the rest of what we're taught. It doesn't add up with the rest of the stories. Context isn't there. It's just very flippant. Like this is it's normal. This won't bother anybody. And maybe it didn't. And maybe it didn't because of stuff that we don't have. And that's what drives me insane. The oil, the pillar, obviously it's some small little thing, right? Because he had it under his head. He used it as a freaking pillow. And then he took it out. And this shall be God's house. And I've looked into the Hebrew and I've tried to look into other manuscripts and stuff like in the past, years ago. And I don't recall ever finding anything that ever made me feel any better. It just ended up being one of these things that now every time I read it, it just kind of aggravates me a little bit. I would love if somebody, learned more than I was able to. But it's odd. But not dangerous. Fair enough. Weird, but not dangerous. Ruth, like the culture shift to keep up with the times and maybe medical discoveries. I've heard that the gene pool was more pure then and therefore not producing genetic flaws. Yeah, I think Answers in Genesis kind of pushes that theory, if I remember right. Don't hold me to that. But I think Answers in Genesis pushes the whole the gene purity theory. I just read the same, and there wasn't enough time for genetic defects to develop, so it wasn't risky in the early days. Yes to all other angels here. I love you. You're so cute. I have a weird thought about all of this. I'll tag you and Mikkel in the Discord later, Joe. It's wacky, but I want to know what you guys think. Down for it. I'm down for anything for this one. It's just so bothersome. It's so bothersome. Oh yeah, do the YouTube stuff. Let me see. Okay. Next, how much? Where do we end here? Okay. Yeah, there's no way we get context moving on. Sometimes I wish I wouldn't delete all of my marks. You guys are so cute. Wacky theories over everything. Yes. Correct. This would be a fun study. Like this is one of those things where if you had an hour and you just wanted to blow it, looking into something that 99% of people will never care enough to look into, Find all references of the Old Testament of pillars, of idols, God's house, like pull keywords, and then pull all of that information and see if you can make anything make sense. That's how I approach all of this stuff. It just so happens that the vast majority of the time, it doesn't provide any clarity. But the 10% of the time it does, it's totally worth the time. Because the dots connect at least enough for you to have kind of a coherent understanding of, I get what is happening there. This was not one for me. This was a dark pit, the abyss of unsatisfied and unfortunate. Okay, well, I think we're I'm trying to learn the language. What would it be? Does anybody have like a teenage kid or a 12-year-old kid or anything? What is the context in which one would use cooked? Because I understand like a practical way to use it, but I don't believe that's how they've structured their language. Like, what's the weird one? Skibbity. That's the weird one. I don't know how I would use that in a sentence. But cooked, I think I can grasp. Like, we're done with the study for tonight. So we've cooked it. Is that correct? Shit, out of luck. Got owned. Cooking equals thinking or working on a great argument. Oh, really? God dang it. So that wouldn't be accurate. Oh, well, that's cooking. What if I cooked? Past tense. Finished or burnt out. Okay, so it's appropriate. So we are hella cooked this evening on this. So if you have other stuff to do, go do other stuff. Cooked equals on fire. Kelsey just butts her head back in like, yeah, I know what that means, bro. On fire, I have a 12-year-old girl. See, that makes no sense to me. It would be, the fire would be out. Let me talk to your kid. This is ridiculous. If you cooked, you're done cooking. So the fire would have been extinguished. You would have poured the water over the grill, the coals. You are done cooking. You are done. If you are on fire, you are cooking. You are cooking. This is why I don't try. Because practically these things make sense to me, and I think that I understand what they're trying to say. And then in actual context, I'm like, that makes no sense. I have no desire to try to entertain this at all. Cooked like a crook who stole his mama's pocketbook? What? I mean, bravo. That was pretty good. Definitely defeated. I don't know. I just remember recently, I think it was Kat, or no. I stumbled on something on my own. And I saw the skibbity thing for the first time like a week ago. And it genuinely troubled me. It genuinely, to my core, made me uncomfortable. Sitting in the morning with a hood on in the corner of the room, watching that video, made me truly uncomfortable. Uncomfortable about society, about children, about all of it. About all of it. And then ever since then, as algorithms do, I've seen more of that garbage than I've ever seen in my life on social media. And I've heard all the words now. Because like I have teachers on Instagram for some reason. I've never looked, never watched. But now there's a bunch of teachers like teaching classes using these words. And I'm sitting there just having no idea what the hell is going on at all. Skibbity toilet genuinely was scary. Ghost had a wonky theory about something and I'm trying to skibbity hear it. Oh God, I'm so uncomfortable. It makes me so uncomfortable. Ugh. I'm back. I just made it back. You're just in time for things to get really weird really quick. It's brain rot, but here's the thing. Is if you actually listen to like the music, it's what's the word? It's tantalizing. The visuals are disturbing and just weird. But the audio is like it's infectious. I don't know. It's probably because I'm old, but like hearing it and watching it, I just felt like not right. I felt a bit like a grip on me, and not like demon stuff or anything. Just like very intelligently put together to completely hook children, which makes sense. It makes sense. There's one social media thing that really scares me when it was popular. I don't even want to speak it to because I'm superstitious, but every now and again it pops up and ruins my day. Slender Man. I remember that. That never really bothered me. My kid knows about that. She doesn't know about any of the other stuff. I've tested her to see, and she doesn't. I'm convinced there's something personal to me as to my deep fear, like a demon or something following me. Oh, I hate it. No, not Slender. Okay, well, if you truly believe that, then don't say it. Yeah. And stop thinking about it. Don't trifle with that shit. Yeah, see? Mikkel's got it right. Don't speak its name. Let that shit die in the depths of your mind. That's a scary thought. That the idea that, like, not to be like weird, but the idea that the spiritual mixed with like something like social media at such a mass scale and influence, the damage that could be done is like something that it troubles me. It troubles me. Have you seen this man? Yesterday was the first time it manifested randomly in like months, and I was really mad. Well, now I want to know, but I don't want you to say it. Send me a letter in the mail with a sticker of what it is, because I'm curious. But please don't say it. Have you dreamt this man? What is this? I feel like I have to Google these things. Are these things safe to put on? I'm not going to do it. Never mind. I will look privately. Especially because it's Reddit. Yeah. Let me see. I think I can show this. All right, here. Have you dreamed this man? Yeah, he looks like my stepdad. Who is it actually supposed to be? Ahmet, a French streamer to defend the flag last year. He didn't participate this year. Okay, well, I think that's irrelevant. What is this? It's a meme. Yes, it's safe. Okay. Analog horror. Okay, that has 23 views, so I don't know if I want to do that. That's not the one. Have you dreamed this man? Is it this rat thing? Is there an official Have You Dreamt This Man page that I just am not stumbling on for some reason? Literally, the image ruins my week, month, and year. Okay, yeah, don't stop talking about it. Let it go. Forget. Forgive and forget. Move on. I'll only tell you promise not to Google it now. If anyone posts or images anywhere, I'm quitting our group. No, just don't say it. Okay, yeah, DM it to me on Instagram. Don't put it anywhere in Discord. I won't do anything with it. I'm just curious. I'm a curious guy. I'm just curious. I promise I will delete it, and then I will never speak of it ever again. You have my word. I did Google it, and nothing is coming up. I don't want to play TikTok, because I'll get stricken for it. I don't know what Newgrounds is. Like, I don't want anything to... Here, let me look privately first. This does not look like it is whatever it is you're trying to... Let me put meme in here. And see if this helps. Okay. Is this it? Is it Mark Zuckerberg? Ever dreamed this man? Is this the big eyebrow man? It's just a creepy guy with big eyebrow. Okay, there we go. Problem solved. We have accomplished. Let's see. What is this from? Like, what is the origin of this meme? Have you seen this man with big eyebrows? I feel like I never know what's going on the internet until it's way too late. I just saw the Skibbity Toilet thing last week. Very behind. Such a weird world that we live in. Wait, I vaguely remember the story. Wasn't this pertaining to Uncanny Valley or something? See, I don't even remember what Uncanny Valley is. Wasn't it a horror movie? Nope, dead ass wrong. See, this is how much I suck. The uncanny valley is a psychological phenomenon that describes feelings of unease or revulsion that people experience when they encounter something that appears or behaves almost human, but not quite. That's right. That's right. The term was coined in 1970s by Masahiro Mori, a robotics professor at Tokyo Institute of Technology. Why is it called that? Uncanny valley? It's a weird term or description for a psychological phenomena. That's odd. To me. In my irrelevant opinion, I think that's odd. That's the guy? The picture? The big eyebrow man? Has to do with the uncanny valley? It was a strange social experiment from like 15 years ago. I mean, yeah, tell me about it. I feel like I've felt that though. Now, because as of the past 3 years, I feel like I've been in the presence of something that is not human. Like physical, literal presence. So like, I think I get it. And even if I didn't, like I can conceptualize the concept for sure. And I get like the alien perspective of it. People who said they've been around like aliens and the feeling that they get and stuff. I've like listened to people talk about that. Uncanny Valley and limited spaces are freaky AF. But I like exploring that space. I mean like limited physical spaces? Like Uncanny Valley in a limited physical space? Meaning like you're with something that is not of this world in a limited physical space? Oh, liminal. I don't have glasses on, sorry. I just read that again and now I understand, so you don't need to explain. Uncanny Valley in liminal spaces are freaky. Gotcha. Okay, here. Liminal space, a transitional area between 2 points, either physical, psychological, or metaphorical. The term comes from the Latin word limen, which means threshold. I am very familiar with this, actually. Extremely familiar with it. Uncomfortably familiar with it. And someday we will talk about that. Or Ghost, maybe someday we will talk privately about that. Are these good pictures for this? I don't know about that. Nah. Maybe it's bigger. Yeah. God, what's that? Ghost, can you explain Uncanny Valley with the example of a mannequin? I don't have my glasses and I'm struggling. Yes, that's right. What's right? These pictures? I feel like these pictures are not representative of where my mind goes when I think about liminal space. Not me minimizing my screen use. Even this stuff freaks me out. Big old baby. That's okay. I don't see anything scary yet here, though. I feel like these are not great examples. Zuckerberg's real face is Uncanny Valley. There is something truly creepy about that guy, though. Like, no offense to him if he's not some weird creature. If he's not, he's probably a good guy and whatever. He's just corporately evil. But there's something weird about that dude's face. There's something weird about him. I feel like we should ask someone who has done DMT, though. Oh, we happen to know somebody who's done DMT now. Or at least we happen to know somebody who's willing to admit it, I guess is what I should actually say. Because that's probably the truth. We have one person who at least is willing to admit that they've done something like that. We will have that chat. We will have a fireside Discord chat, not on YouTube, about all that stuff. For sure, Patricia. You're great, Patricia. I'm very glad you're here. You have been absolutely lovely. Liminal spaces are spaces intensely alone, but it feels like you're being watched. Interesting. That's kind of a different definition. Liminal spaces are spaces intensely alone, but it feels like you're being watched. Let's ghost definition. Now I want to look into this because these are two very different things, in my opinion. A transitional area between 2 points, either physical, psychological, or metaphorical. That's a different thing, right? Like intensely alone feelings, but feeling like you're being watched is different than like this concept of a transitional area between 2 points. I can identify with this definition, the Google one. And I guess maybe I've felt what Ghost is talking about too, but not as much. Or at least not that I remember as much. Patricia said, in between places like hallways and stuff that feel familiar, even if you haven't been there before. We're getting numerous definitions for what this term means. Ghost, I think images like what Joe had freak people out because a lot of people say they look familiar, even though they're not actual places most of us had been. Yeah, but that's explainable, I feel like. This is interesting. Everybody kind of has a different perspective on what this is. The being places you've never, or seeing pictures of places you've never been, but feeling like you've been there before. I feel like, justify and rationalize why that might be. The intense feelings of being alone, or being literally alone, and then feeling like you're being watched, I feel like to a degree is also explainable. A transitional area between 2 points, either physical, psychological, or metaphorical, I think is, depending on like situation. It seems like the threshold, that's what the Latin word means, liminal space, limen means threshold. To me, like I see that as the threshold between here and there, reality and otherwise. Like always the best example is like somebody who takes something that elevates them beyond this reality. It's the point you cross that threshold, the transitional area between 2 points, either physical, psychological, or metaphorical, or maybe all three. That to me is horrifying. These other things, personally, they don't really like bring immense feelings of fear for me. Probably because they're so generic. I can't see anything. I'm getting so blind as the years go by. I just get more and more blind. Could Earth be a liminal space? I actually believe that's kind of what it is. Yeah. I say it all the time. I think this is so irrelevant. I think what we're experiencing right now, I find so unbelievably irrelevant. I think it doesn't matter in the slightest. It's just like this dumb holding area in between something. And there are tasks we have to complete here if we want to not be in the liminal space. If we want to actually cross the threshold. But I feel like this kind of is the threshold. Like this is the threshold, this reality. And then we'll finally cross the threshold of the threshold into the next embodiment of reality. So yes, personally, I do see it like that. Disagree mostly, Joe. I felt watched for years, and I assure you I wasn't paranoid due to that time period in my life. The people that were always around at my house that didn't exist proves it. Well, you had like paranormal stuff though. But I mean, there's a big difference. Like there was a time in my life where I felt like I was being watched because I was being watched. That's different than feeling like you're being watched when you're not being watched. In this reality. But maybe on a different plane of reality, you are being watched. I feel like that's kind of the concept, isn't it? But you also had like actual paranormal experiences. But that's the actual concept. Nobody was actually there. Nothing was actually with you in this reality or on this plane, in this continuum. But on another, they were. To me, that's kind of the differentiating point. Filters are pretty relevant, though. Yeah, fair. I could choose my words better when I explain that, for sure. There's a purpose and a meaning. But on a grand scale, I see Earth and this timeline as like this tiny speck of dust. Not totally irrelevant, but irrelevant in scope of the rest. I could have said that better. I agree with you, totally. A vestibule is a filter. for sure. Yeah, I totally agree with your perspective on all that. It's not the way that I've ever thought about it, but after much thinking about it, I definitely get that perspective of it, and I agree with it for sure. I just uploaded a pic to off-topic chat. Let us see. Oh, Jesus, what are you doing to us? Nat, run. So, Ruth said, this can depict a liminal space. My pastor's friend was camping deep in the, not going to try to say that, national forest, and this is what the trail cam picked up. A figure walking behind a teepee-shaped tent. Yeah, this makes me want to scratch my eyes out. That is horrifying. That is not okay, as the kids would say. Don't like that. But why is that a liminal space? Is what confuses me. Is I feel like a lot of us are functioning on different definitions. So in the paranormal world, is the liminal space just like any time, any place, anywhere where something that has moved on from this reality is again in this reality and physically you can see them? Is that the threshold? I don't know. I'm having a hard time from the definition, but that's horrifying. So definition aside, that's atrociously horrifying. Not a fan. Not a fan of that. When you watch the darkness comes to your heart. Damn, Pastora, that was dark. That was very unlike you, and no butterflies or smiley faces or anything, but you're not wrong. That was actually kind of beautiful. It's a bit poetic. It's just very dark poetic. Nat said, as someone who has paralyzing fear of the paranormal, I have a shocking lack of experience with anything in that realm. Stay away. I didn't believe in any of that garbage until some terrible, terrible things happened. And now I have different views on all of that garbage. True, also relatable. Oh my God, yes, all those reports, bro. I agree, Pastora. I won't even let anyone watch horror movies in my house because I won't allow it into my home or into my body through my eyebrows. Yeah, Pastora came in with just this savage poetic drop. Now said, oh, don't worry, Joe, you'll never see me seeking anything out. Yeah, don't do it. I don't think you have to seek it out, though. I'd say I'm 50% for me. I've had 4, I think, total like experiences, and 2 of them were 100% unprovoked, and 2 of them I totally brought on myself. So I'm a coin toss of whether you actually control that or not. I'm not a great sample size though either, if we're being honest. Very limited. So I need to do more testing that I have no intention of doing. But I very much feel like it will happen again. Yeah, I really don't like this though. This is scary crap here that Ruth put in there. I mean, it seems very obviously like a thing. And by thing, I mean a person. Or what perhaps was once a person. Ghost said, I've always been impervious to dark stuff. At least referring to movies, etc. Real life is far scarier. Yeah, the movies have never bothered me. Like, we don't really watch movies ever anymore, but we used to watch movies. They used to be horror movies, largely. Or at least 50%. I don't know. But this stuff's never bothered, I don't think, Kat or I. It's like comical. I think there's one movie that Kat is opposed to now, but I think we watched it. Maybe not. I don't know. But they, like, a bunch of people died while making the movie or something. I don't remember. She can tell you guys. But she doesn't want to watch that. I think that's the deal. Is that she doesn't want to watch that because a bunch of people actually died in weird ways while making the horror movie. And so she's like, yeah, let's not watch that. I think. And so I think we didn't watch it. Real life is way scarier than Hollywood horror movies. I used to enjoy horror movies until I realized how it affected my home and mind. So is that why we haven't watched any of them? What if I want to watch a horror movie? I kind of like the horror movies. The problem is just like none of them are scary. It's just suspense. Kat and I were just talking about this the other day. Horror movies don't exist. And actually, I think it's because it's something you guys were talking about in Discord. Horror movies don't exist. Unpopular opinion. suspense movies exist. What is a horror movie? Somebody tell me an actual horror movie that is scary, not suspenseful, not that builds up tension and has a good score in the background and makes you jump. Something that is truly scary, where they don't need the music, they don't need the suspense or the shock, because it's just actually fucking scary. It is a scary story. Find me that. I'll pay you $100. I don't think horror movies exist. Change my mind. There's suspense. Rant over. God go with me wherever I go. There we go. I feel better just having read that. And I'm not at all being sarcastic. Ghost, you think I should be more scared of real people? Yes, you should be. Especially in 2024. Speaking of what Ruth put in there, y'all would enjoy the Missing 411 series. I mean, if you're a weirdo and enjoy that stuff. Yeah, I feel like 80% of women are, Cat's words, not mine, a weirdo, because they would enjoy the 411 stories. I feel like that's the most predictable interest that women have, is crime and paranormal. Popular opinion. We did not watch any of those. Okay, got it. After I learned about those movies, there were a few, is when I really changed my mind about it all. Go watch it in the car. Go watch it in the car. Keep that out of Cat's house. I mean, we don't watch movies at all, so I'm not concerned about it. Horror movies are so corny. Right, that's my problem. Better pray, Padre. Did you hear about the man who died making the original Wizard of Oz? A Diddy documentary. No, I did not hear about that. How did he die? Or is this something I need to Google? Man died making Wizard of Oz story. It's a beautiful day. There is an urban legend, let's be clear, because AI would never lie, that an actor who played a munchkin in The Wizard of Oz unalived himself by means of string wrapped around the upper part of his person, and then the other side of the string wrapped around something else. See if YouTube catches that. But this is false, AI says. The rumor has been around since the film's 50th anniversary. I actually do recall hearing something like this, though. So I'm inclined to believe that Ruth is correct and that AI is lying to me, because AI is not always right. And I feel like this is a big cover-up, and I feel like it's conspiracy, and we should let TikTok know, and they will go wild with it. And they will make it true, even if it's not true. A figure that appeared to be a person hanging from a tree can be seen in the background. However, it's actually a white bird that's obscured by a tree. This sounds like a cover-up, babe girl, making it look like a person. The studio's official explanation is that the shadow is cast by a large crane that was used to make the forest seem more realistic. When the film was re-released in 1989, the footage was cleaned up. The merger was taken out of the footage. Got it. I don't know. I'm skeptical. I lean more towards Ruth is correct. This sounds like a very obvious cover-up to me. The poltergeist. I think war footage is terrifying. Yeah, watching actual war footage is horrific. It's horrific. Because if you've never seen violence in person, or if you've never seen like real violence, unedited on video, it's horrific compared to movies and TV and stuff. But then going from movies and TV and stuff to real footage to actual real violence, like in person, that's why I totally agree with Ghost. Like, reality is the scariest shit you could possibly imagine. And when you see some of that, I don't think a horror movie would ever bother you ever again. And I have an older brother who, Nat said, I have an older brother who used to make me watch jump scare video games when I was younger. Well, he traumatized you, and that's why you are the way you are today. Ghost says psychologists need to study humor and fear because both are highly subjective. Yeah, that's a good point. good point. Take that, censors. I actually studied the film and saw it. See? I agree, Ruth. I think this is an obvious Hollywood cover-up. It sounds like absolute trash. I am on your team. I think you are correct, and I think it probably makes the most sense. And I definitely remember hearing about this at some point in my life. Isn't that interesting, Ghost? Stuff that would literally bring me to tears would probably be so lame it would make you giggle. Yeah, it's a great point, because it's totally accurate. What makes one person pee their pants scared will make another person piss his pants laughing. It's extremely subjective. It's a phenomenal point. Kat said I was that brother. Now I feel bad about that, so thanks. I'll call my brother tomorrow. There's always time to apologize. There was a lot that went wrong with the Wizard of Oz. Was there a big scandal with the Wizard of Oz? I didn't know that. I do like vaguely have the picture in my head of the guy like hanging in the background. I mean, it's 89 is before my time, not by much, but a little. It is almost 8 o'clock. No wonder I am slowly shutting down. All right. Housekeeping stuff. War footage and movies absolutely break my heart. I've seen the wicked stuff in real life and was okay, but war stuff is gut-wrenching. Interesting. I'm kind of the opposite. I get both, though. I mean, war is more heartbreaking, for sure. So, I guess I get what you're saying. Like, watching real war footage, to me, was still much easier than seeing it in person. Seeing violence in person is atrocious. I've never felt more human than being around physical violence in person. Nat said, I've heard some theories that we may have had predators in early humanity that created automatic fear to the same image that are used in horror. I'd be interested to hear more about that. I don't know how much I believe that, but I think that's really interesting. Things like pale, skinny, dark hair, big eyes, etc. makes you wonder. That's an interesting theory. That's an interesting theory, actually. The more I think about it, I like that. I'm going to look into that, but I feel like it's just going to be full of alien stuff. I feel like it's just going to be, well, the aliens brought us here. They planted us here to, mine gold and shit so that they can come back and probe us and take our gold. Elle said, war is a choice, as is watching gore content. I mean, of course. Yeah, it's all a choice. Damn, I feel called out. Okay. All right, I don't have much, but I guess just a heads up, I've mentioned this in the past. I have a life change happening in the middle of October. So there is a possibility that all streams get pushed back. An hour, maybe 2 hours. I don't really know. I won't know until it happens. But just a heads up. So Sunday could possibly stay 6, but any weekday stuff would be pushed to 7 or 8 Central Time. So depending on where some of you guys are, like, it might be late. I don't know. I'll do polls and we'll talk about it and whatever. Maybe we have a Discord voice and just make it easy and try to rework the schedule for the people who are actually here consistently so that they get to come and I try to work around you guys. But just understand it's probably coming. Tuesday for the old podcast thing coming back. I think we're good for it. I'll talk to Kat, but I think at worst, I'd like to try to do next week, but maybe this, maybe. I don't know. I'll talk to Kat. I'll see. Again, my fear with that is we started at 6 p.m. though on, next Tuesday. And then in the middle of August, I have to push it to 7 or 8. Will that still work? I don't know. So we'll have to see. So just heads up that this might be rough and rocky for the month of October, but I'm going to make it work. We just might have to do some moving around to make it work. The end all be all will be that we do 2 streams, Thursday and Sunday, on the live Bible study YouTube. Tuesday stream will be on Tattoo Theist. I've said it before, but it's because we can say whatever we want over here. I'm demonetized. The algorithm does not recognize that I exist, so nothing matters. So we can talk totally freely and openly, whereas we need to be a bit more careful on the Bible study one. Beyond that, I don't really have anything. So I think we're good to go. If you get the wrong look at myself in a mirror at night without brushed hair, I can actually scare the shit out of myself. The rabbit hole I went down until 2 a.m. when I found that one. Oh, the gotcha. I mean, it's a great theory. OMFG is cat leader. Yeah. Cat leader's in the other room. She's beautiful. And we have big news that will be dropping soon. But I want to know why you said that, though. How do you know cat leader? Where do you know her from? Nat said you've never see a muscled blonde guy with a suntan as a freak of nature demon. That's true. That's pretty accurate. Mikkel, it's all right, Joe. This group has renounced attachment. That makes me very happy. That's good stuff. It's very good to hear. I'm glad there's security. Good God. I get in other news, I started doing social media again because I really want to get more people in here. And it looks like it's worked. We've got something like 20 almost in the past 3 weeks. Active out of 20 is maybe 3-4 people that I've seen. But I feel like it's going pretty all right. So this being like our thing, not my thing. If you guys think something needs to change in Discord, please tell me, or tell Ghost, then Ghost will tell me. If you guys think something else I could do, I'm not a social media guy. Like, I do it begrudgingly as hell. I do not enjoy it at all. It drives me insane. So if you guys know social media better than me, and you're like, maybe Joe should do that because that would help us get more people in Discord to hang out, I'm very open to that. Just to be super, super clear. I'm very open to you sending me a message and being like, hey, I think this would work better than what you're doing, or in addition to what you're doing. You know, I'm not the guy. I'm not going to sit and watch videos on how to do YouTube better. I'm not going to sit and watch TikTok, Instagram, real professional crap. I'm just not going to do it. It's not going to happen. So if you have tips that will help, otherwise it's a total crapshoot. But obviously it's doing something. So I'm going to keep doing it begrudgingly because it is taking us to our ultimate goal of finding cool people. Like Elle. Elle's relatively new. Past couple months. It's been great. It's been great. Patricia, new. Freaking phenomenal. There's a handful. Okay, point is, help me help us. I see her comment, but I didn't realize she was your wife because I love this. Tell us if it's a B-O-G. Damn, that's quite presumptive. Quite presumptive. What if it was anything else? Now we're gonna feel pressured to produce a child. Yeah, where is Jorge? Jorge has been MIA, I feel like. Does anybody have his address? We will send him a, what is it called? An edible arrangement. Jorge, come back to the Discord, Jorge. Roll back in, brother. Roll back in. I really ought to change my name on here. Yeah, I don't know why you have your actual name on there. That's a good point. You probably should do that. You probably should do that. Speaking of which, we found out baby Clusty is a boy, so that's exciting. Is Clusty the name? Or is Clusty like an internet thing that I'm ignorant to? Because I assume it's an ignorant thing or internet thing that I'm ignorant to. What is Clusty? I feel so stupid half the time that we do this. Okay, it's your last day. Oh, I gotta go to bed, bro. I gotta go to bed. Okay, got it. Well, that makes more sense. I am so with you now. That's exciting. So what is the count? What is the count for you now? Is it 3? I'd have to look on Instagram. I stopped looking at your posts because it's so freaking aggravating how beautiful your baby is. It's disgusting. It's bothersome. Alice said, brother, I've been sub to you since 2016 when you were angsty. Don't do that. Here's the thing, though, is since I started doing this again, people have said I became so mean. And I kind of get it, because if I look back at the old videos, I'm like smiling and I feel like I have good energy, and I'm talking much slower and like calmer. And a lot of the people like you have left, but a lot of them talk to me on Instagram and stuff here and there. And they'll tell me like, look, I still listen to your stuff, but like, you've gotten mean. You've copped an attitude since you started doing this originally. And you seem much more opinionated. I'm like, I'm fucking tired. I'm sick of the bullshit. I was a new, fresh pastor, but I guess I was angsty in like my youth, I suppose. But what a brighter perspective. The Bible still made sense to me because of ignorance. The church, for the most part, I still had a decent perspective of. Like, I had a positive outlook because I was ignorant. And then there's a 10-year gap. And now it's just like, fuck. This is the worst. But I still love it. I have like a realistic perspective now. Like, none of this shit makes sense at all. And I'm okay with that. But it's hard to approach it with like this beautiful, airy ignorance of like, I don't know. Anybody who started a Christian and like went to churches and just everything was great. It's like filled with the Holy Spirit, bro. Like, worship music's awesome. The pastor is just phenomenal. Feeling motivated because like you don't understand any of what's actually going on. You don't understand that they're not teaching you the Bible. You don't understand that what they just said doesn't make any sense. It all makes sense. It's all beautiful. It's all, it's all just great. And so you're just airy and light all the time, but you're living on ignorance. And that's what I was doing. And people asking questions and me doing YouTube was the whole thing. That slowly but surely, going through those years on YouTube, answering people's questions, I had to learn the answers. So the more I learned, I was like, holy this is rough. This is way rougher than I thought. While side by side going through seminary and having the same experience there. So it was just like all at once. All at once, I was just realizing nothing is as I thought it was. But I came back to YouTube because I had made peace with it. But I guess I have this kind of anger about me now, I suppose, which I'm not. Like, I'm not angry at all. I'm not angry at all. I just feel like I'm realistic. And maybe I have a bit of an attitude, but I don't mean to. Like, I'm a very positive person. I have a very, very good outlook on life all the time. All the time. But I started doing YouTube again because I had finally come to peace with knowing nothing and being comfortable enough to feel like I could teach again. From the honest perspective of, I don't know shit, but I will teach you to also not know shit, and we can do it together, and it'll be great. And so far, it's been great. I was totally right, and I'm very glad I did it. That said, yes, the original Joe that I wanted to choke the fuck out. The original Joe that you fell in love with, and now you still love, I guess, still hang on, or stuck with. Choose whichever. You're a great teacher. I wish I believed that. I feel like I'm good at teaching realistically, I suppose. I'm good at bringing people together. I don't even think I'm that great of a teacher. I think I've done a good job my whole life of figuring out ways to bring people together. That's what I feel like I've excelled at. And then I can like facilitate a conversation. I don't necessarily feel like I teach any of you anything, honestly. I just like provide different information. You all provide just as much information though. So it's hard to have that perspective. I feel like we all teach here for the most part, other than people who simply observe. But everybody here right now, like everybody here puts information in. So I don't feel at all like these are like me teaching you guys. I feel like it's just like a round table of information. That said, I'm always concerned that if I would have grown up in a non-denominational church, I would have at least attempted to become an atheist. Yeah. I always found it cheesy. Catholic Church encouraged question. It's interesting because that goes both ways, right? A lot of Catholics, I was raised Catholic, went to Catholic school, went to Catholic church like 3 times a week, and they did not encourage question. They told you basically shut up, like just believe or you're going to hell. I had similar experiences that Ruth did, where like shut the fuck up and believe what we're telling you, or else you're going to die, and you're going to die forever in hell. I was like, oh shit, okay, all right then, and that made me become an atheist for a long time, for years. But it's funny how that works. Like that can go either way. And others will say Catholic Church like allows them to ask questions and it's very open. And I've seen that too. There are Catholic guys that I really like because they push that kind of experience. It's like, that's why I always say denominations they're satanic. They're evil inherently. Dividing Christians amongst each other is evil inherently. Any Christian from anywhere with any theological system at all could be like us. Denominations are irrelevant. You just be Christian, and there are very few things you have to do to actually be Christian. Like, it's not a long list. And then be open and honest and transparent. That's it. And then just that easy. Like, you're a part of our club. It's not that hard. It's just rare. We're all in our bear era. Right now, strip it down, build it up. I'm happy to explain if you like. Give me the mic. Well, it's there, baby girl. It's there. Goes the spark. Yes, yeah. I'm the freaking herding dog, is what I am. I'm the herding dog that barks and screams and is obnoxious until everybody shuts the fuck up and gets in a circle and talks. That might be a more accurate way of saying it. Oh, I gotta ask, have you always thought I was just some gal hitting on a preacher man this whole time? Because I always leave flirtatious comments on his TikTok. Yeah, you really do. It's very funny. Wow, how bold. Interesting how that is so different. I just think megachurch has always made me cringe. Right? But think about how many people go into megachurch and cry because they're so emotionally touched. That's the perspective that you have to have. Is although this makes me feel like I want to punch everybody in here in their fucking face, there are other people here who are crying from joy. That's how wild this world is. And you can't just stay in your perspective. It's like a best life skill in the world is to be able to truly see things from like any perspective. And that's the odd thing about it. The super odd thing about it. Pastora said, Joe, you're amazing. We are a good family. I totally agree. And you are the literal light, and I don't ever want you to say anything dark and poetic ever again because it crushed my soul slightly. I'm just kidding. It was genuinely kind of a beautiful sentence, but it was just very hard to see without the flowers and the hearts and stuff. You are the glue of positivity here. Some people probably think you're Joe's groupie. No, I never saw you hit on him. I didn't make the connection, to be honest. I'm sure people want to pull their hair out at my Catholic church because they're so bored. Totally get it. Right. Because they're so bored or because they think it's heretical, because they think it's silly, like the outfits are silly. Like it's 2 different sides of the coin. That's why I don't hate any of them for like the aesthetic. Even the fog machines, like whatever. I'll make jokes about it and talk shit about it forever till I die because it makes me happy. But like, who cares really? If they had fog machines and were dressing like priests, which I also think is unnecessary, but the word was good, and they had panels of people allowed to talk, and it was like church should be, in my opinion. With who the fuck am I? But with my opinion, if they were doing what I wanted them to do, then I wouldn't care. If they were wearing the whole get up and the sash, put a yarmulke on for fuck's sake, I don't care. And then the fog machines and the worship music, don't get like, all irrelevant. As long as they're doing the thing that I think is the right, which sounds so stupid, but the thing that I think is the right thing to do, where everybody's involved and everybody has a voice and it is a conversation and somebody isn't preaching about their fucking dog and their vacation for 30 minutes. I watched a sermon today. I was telling Kat, I watched a sermon today on YouTube from my dad's church because he said it was good. So I'm like, all right, I'll listen. because I try to listen to something every week. But I put the sermon on, and I had to fast forward 40 something minutes. 40 something minutes. Just to get through worship music and the tithe. 40 something minutes. It was half of the service. It blew me away. 40 minutes that you could have had people talking, asking questions, having a panel up there. Like, hey, we can cover a lot of stuff in 40 minutes before the pastor gives his piece for 35 minutes. It blew me away. It blew me away. It drove me crazy. Padre Joe made me. I'm sure people... I've been both a silent Joe groupie and a very, very feral Joe groupie. I'll even get it tattooed. I believe that you would. I believe that you would. I believe that is accurate. All right, guys, I think I'm going to go because I feel like I'm getting loopy. Because I'm tired. Yeah, that's why I gravitate towards this group so much. I try to replace a lot of my social media following with Christian content, but it's all a little too that for me. Yeah. It's always nice when I see that. But it doesn't surprise me like in this group, but it's just so cringy. It's so cringy. I'll send you guys, though. I found somebody on Instagram who just mocks the corporate church, but they do it with like Broadway flair. Like these are like show kids in high school, like jazz hands and stuff. And it's actually really, really good. They make fun of the corporatized church with jazz hands and song and dance. But it's the production is like, it's quality. It's very good. I'll leave it in Discord because it's very good. Otherwise, all the crap is cringe and I have a really hard time watching it. And with that, I love you guys. But I'm going to sleep before I say something that I regret because I'm very tired and loopy. I will figure out the schedule thing. Hopefully, probably Tuesdays will start next week. So not 2 days from now, but the following Tuesday. That is the plan. Cat and I will get it figured out. That's why I stayed away from Christianity my whole life, ignorantly, of course, but nonetheless. Yeah, fair enough. Love you guys. I'm out. Have a beautiful night.